Okay, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call our SBCAG meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Director Carvajal? Farr? Here. Adam? Here. Lavanino? Here. Bennett? Here. Lizaldi? Here. Mosby? Here. Clark? Here. Schneider?
Here.
Patino? Here. Sierra? Here. Richardson? Here. Gubbins? Here. And Chair Wolf.
Here. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from our October 20th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Very good. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have roll call.
Directors Farr? Adam? Levanino?
Abstain.
Bennett?
Aye.
Richardson? Lizaldi? Mosby? Clark?
Aye.
Schneider?
Aye.
Patino? Sierra? And Chair Wolf.
Aye.
Motion passes 11-01.
All right, very good. And we're moving on to public comment. This is for the public to address the board on items that are not on the agenda. And I have two speaker slips. If there's anyone else that would like to submit a speaker slip, please do so right now. Our first public comment speaker will be Mr. Tom Becker.
Thank you. Tom Becker from Buellton.
Thank you.
What a difference an election makes. People with no voice gain control of the bully pulpit. Citizens with no faith in their government become the government. The slave becomes the master. For over 100 years, hardworking Americans have used personal motor vehicle transportation to propel this nation to heights of freedom, prosperity, and equality no other country on the face of this earth has ever achieved. We are a free people, and much of that freedom stems from our ability to travel in personal automobiles anytime we want to any destination we choose. Yet, in spite of the obvious benefits personal automobile travel has bestowed upon the American people, there are vicious forces bent on the destruction of the American dream. Self-absorbed politicians and bureaucrats, armed with false statistics and bedecked in the cloak of smug hypocrisy, have endeavored to strip honorable Americans of the basic freedoms of self-determination and self-mobility. These narcissistic Luddites are designing cities where free and proud Americans are packed into slums. In these ghettos, personal automobile usage has been or will soon be destroyed, replaced by failing, crime-ridden mass transit systems. All the while, these same self-righteous urban planners have allowed our roads and bridges to crumble. Today, we are a nation $20 trillion in debt, with an infrastructure repair backlog in the trillions of dollars. It is for these reasons, among others, that Americans across this country voted to drain the swamp. In the months and years to come, we can only hope that the severe damage inflicted upon this great nation can be repaired. And in the words of Winston Churchill, America can move forward onto broad, sunlit uplands. If we, the freedom-loving people of the United States, embrace our God-given right to self-determination and self-mobility, we will once again take our place as freedom's guiding beacon. However, if we fail, this nation and the world will sink into the abyss. The choice is ours, and we made a good start on November 8th. Thank you.
Okay, our next public speaker is Mr. Scott Wentz.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Scott Wentz representing Kaiser Basic. Hopefully you've had a chance to read the letter that was sent to you and was received on Monday. It's a rather lengthy letter having to do with how you operate, how the board has for the last 20 years operated. We are very much concerned about the fact that the board over the years has not required of each and every operating entity that's applying for grants to sign off on the truth and authenticity of their grants. If you have bicycle counts, they have to prove them. If you have a negative declaration, you have to have that proof. As you see in that letter that was sent to you, we picked one agency. That agency, we reviewed the number of times that it has not done this sort of thing. We would urge you to look into these things. The last time we asked something like this was with the MTD electric bus program. It wound up in the resignation of the MTD board, the resignation of the MTD director, and the cancellation of a project that was grossly overfunded and grossly misrepresented. This is what's going on in transportation within the county. This can't continue. The operating officer of each entity should be forced to sign a declaration under the penalty of perjury that the information is given is correct, and that your staff then reviews that declaration to make sure it is correct. Without these types of guarantees, you can't continually give out money for things that don't work. And I'll give you an example. The city of Santa Barbara, I'm holding this up for the camera, we sent them a letter in January of 2014 talking about the Cliff Drive Las Positas roundabout proposal. Constant deflection, no hard evidence or information given until 2015 in April, and that was under a California Public Records Act. At the same time, we asked, where is the negative declaration and the documentation to support it? As of today, they still haven't produced it. This kind of thing has to stop. And I'm the mayor of the city of Santa Barbara sitting here, and I'm not picking on her. It's the way the procedure is operating. Forensic analysis has to be done of how these things are being operated, done, and funded, because our streets are crumbling in the process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we have no other public speakers, correct?
No more public speakers.
Okay. Then we will move on to the approval of the consent calendar. I'll look to members of the board to see if anyone would like to pull an item. All right. Seeing no one, anyone in Santa Barbara?
No, I can move the consent calendar.
Very good. Is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Directors Farr? Adam? Lavanino? Bennett? Richardson? Lizaldi? Mosby? Clark?
Aye.
Schneider?
Aye.
Patino? Sierra? And Chair Wolf.
Aye.
Motion passes 12-0.
All right, thank you. Now we will move on to item 6, and this is the beginning of the action items.
Item 6, election of officers for 2017. Elect board chair and vice chair for 2017.
Did you want to say something, Mr. Camper? Would you like me to discuss this?
Madam Chair, I have nothing to add to the staff report.
Okay. Well, let me just for all of our edification, the reason we have this on the agenda today is that we will not be having a board meeting in December. And in consultation with Vice Chair Bennett, we thought this would be appropriate to move forward and have the election of officers today for the 2017 year. It would also give our staff advance notice of who the folks will be in planning for the trip to D.C. And so I want to thank Mr. Bennett for his assistance in developing this process. So this will be for the officers, the election of a board chair and vice chair to commence in our January.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Richardson.
in the tradition of SBCAG of calling up the vice chair as to chair, I'd like to nominate Michael Bennett as chair, and for supervisor replacement for vice chair, I'd like to nominate Peter Adam.
Okay, well, that's great. Thank you, Mr. Richardson. And we have a motion from Mr. Richardson and a second from Ms. Patino. Is there any other discussion in Santa Barbara? All right, hearing none.
No discussion.
Thank you. Then let's have a roll call vote.
Directors Farr? Adam? Levanino? Bennett? Richardson?
I guess.
Oh, you made the motion. You've got to be very enthusiastic.
Lizaldi?
Let me think about it. Aye.
Mosby? Clark?
Aye.
Schneider?
Aye.
Patino? Sierra? And Chair Wolf.
Aye.
Motion passes 12-0.
All right, very good. Thank you and congratulations. We will move on to item 7.
Item 7, Federal Legislative Program. Select an authorized delegation of SBCAG board members to schedule meetings in Washington, D.C. in 2017 to advocate for the SBCAG legislative agenda.
Okay, Mr. Hart? Or Mr.
I can
Kemp?
take this item and just
Okay.
briefly introduce it. As board members are aware, SBCAG has sent a delegation of its members back to Washington, D.C. Each year for the past several years to advocate for SBCAG's positions on federal legislation, to advocate for specific projects as well. And I think these trips have been very successful and useful for furthering the board's purposes. Normally, we would schedule this trip in February or the March timeframe, and in order to make the travel arrangements, staff is suggesting that you, and since we are not having a December meeting, that you go ahead and identify who the members are of the delegation, so that we can begin to make the travel arrangements. It proves to be difficult to schedule, especially airline reservations, if we do it or wait until January to do that. Normally, the board's practice has been to appoint the delegation consisting of the chair, the vice chair, and the immediate past chair. So we send 3 members of the board to go back to Washington, D.C. So staff would recommend that you appoint a delegation.
Okay, very good. Do we have any? We do have a public speaker, and did you want to say something, Mr. Lavanino?
I was going to make a motion, but
Okay.
didn't know we had a public speaker.
All right. Let's go with our public speaker, Mr. Tom Becker.
Thank you. Tom Becker from Buellton. I don't think I need to remind anyone that the people of this country have elected a new administration to run the federal government, executive branch. That new administration doesn't think like you people. They think like the common American, the average American, that really is not interested in your hypothetical, ridiculous ideas about how cities should be designed and how people should get around. This administration, the new administration, is going to focus on restoring this nation, which has been severely damaged by the last 8 years. Our infrastructure has been ripped to pieces, not repaired. We have doubled the national debt with no end in sight. This year alone, this fiscal year alone, $616 billion in new debt. Ridiculous. This new administration is going to make sure that jobs come first. They're going to make sure that the roads are repaired, the bridges are repaired, and I'll be very honest, they don't give a damn about your bike lanes, your silly bike lanes that nobody rides in. The automotive industry is the number 1 job provider in this nation, not only in production of motor vehicles, but in the repair of motor vehicles, spare parts, in the fuel that is put into those automobiles and trucks. Michigan and Ohio now run the national agenda, not you people, not California. Michigan and Ohio determined who was going to be president on November 8th, along with Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. And they don't think like you. They want jobs, and they want the automotive industry to be returned to the great state of Michigan and the great state of Ohio, major automotive and truck manufacturing centers. The county must focus on what will create jobs, and the county should promote the automotive industry. You should stop attacking the automotive industry. The county should also promote oil development, because oil is the fuel that is put into our transportation vehicles. They don't run on sunshine. They run on oil, gasoline and diesel fuel. And oil derived fuels are the only, and I mean only, viable energy source for transportation. Forget about electric vehicles. It's not a viable transportation or not a viable industry at this time unless they get subsidies. And even then, those subsidies are going to be ended by this administration with all likelihood. You people should start looking at what your constituents do. They drive cars and trucks. And you no longer control this issue. The people of Ohio and Michigan do, and they want their industries back. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Lavagna?
I'll make a motion that we send, it would be Supervisor Wolf, Director Bennett, and Director Adam back to Washington, D.C. as part of our delegation.
All right.
Can we get a alternate who might want to go in case, because we don't have any dates hard on this, right? Okay, well, I know that I'm going to be out of the country for a little while during that period, and so I may or may not be able to go. So if you decide to go during that late January time frame, I wouldn't be able to go. So, and I don't know what else is going on either. So, you know, maybe there's an alternate that might be called on. Alice? Okay. All right.
Okay, so do you want to amend your motion?
Sure, we'll include Mayor Patino as an alternate for Supervisor Adam if he's not able to go.
Okay, very good. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those, roll call vote.
Directors Farr? Aye. Adam? Lavanino?
Aye.
Bennett?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
Lizaldi?
Aye.
Mosby?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Schneider?
Aye.
Patino? Sierra?
Aye.
And Chair Wolf.
Aye.
Motion passes 12-0.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Now we'll move on to item 8, which is now the beginning of our informational items. We can read that into the record.
Item 8, US 101 Corridor Project Status Report. Receive a presentation on the progress of the Highway 101 Linden-Casitas Project, the Highway 101 HOV Project, and the Highway 101 related projects from staff, the SBCAG Corridor Advisor, and Caltrans.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kemp.
Chair and members, we last reported to you on the status of the Highway 101 corridor projects in July, and at that time we committed to coming back to you to report on how things are progressing before the end of the year. Since we're not having a December meeting, we moved it up to this month so that we could keep the board informed with a lot of the significant progress that's being made on the 101 corridor project. I'm going to be joined today in the presentation by Fred Luna, who's going to provide an update on the construction and the public outreach work that's going on with the Phase 3 project. That's the Linden-Casitas Pass interchange improvements. And then Scott Eads from Caltrans, the project manager, is going to talk about the revised environmental impact report that has been prepared by Caltrans and will soon be released for public review in response to the court ruling. Then Tony Harris, our corridor advisor, is going to provide an update on the decision point documents that are under preparation by Caltrans and our consulting team. And then finally, Fred Luna is going to wrap up with a report on the 5 corridor-related projects to bring you up to date. Again, this is a now very familiar graphic that the board members are aware of, showing the 4 phases of the Highway 101 corridor widening project. Of course, phases 1 and 2 are complete. That completed about half of the 16 miles that needs to be widened. The Phase 3 project in Carpinteria has just begun construction, and then the Phase 4 is the remaining roughly 10 miles of 101 that needs to be widened, and we're going to focus our presentation today on Phases 3 and 4. Before we get into the meat of the update, I did want to relay some really good news with respect to the Rincon multi-use trail that we just learned about a couple of weeks ago. In October, we learned that the CTC staff is recommending that the Rincon multi-use trail be funded from the state active transportation program. We applied for, and the staff is recommending a grant of $6.8 million in state funding to complete this important project. This is great news. This is one of the largest grants that's ever been recommended by the Commission staff, and if approved by the Commission at its meeting on December 7th or 8th, will be one of the largest grants ever in the 3 cycles of the ATP program. The funds that are being recommended from this cycle are programmed for fiscal year 1920, which works out well with the timing of the construction of the project. This important project is going to close a 1-mile gap in the California Coastal Trail. And as I said, this is a very significant project. This is more than just a garden variety bike path. This actually completes a section of the California Coastal Trail where bicyclists and pedestrians have to navigate either very circuitous or dangerous routes to connect between Carpinteria and the new bike path that was built between Muscle Shoals and Rincon State Beach. Particularly dangerous is the crossing that pedestrians have to make when they cross over the Union Pacific Railroad tracks on an unauthorized at-grade crossing. This project is being implemented as part of the coastal permit conditions for the Linden Casitas Pass project. So getting funding to complete the construction of this project was critical because it is one of the permit conditions. And as I said, it is it's going to be under construction and completed in 2019 ahead of the completion of the Linden Casitas Pass interchange project. I did want to just brag for a moment on my staff with the effort that went into this project. There was a considerable amount of effort that went into preparing an application that ultimately proved to be successful. We did apply for this project for the Cycle 2 program that was completed last year. We weren't able to get funded last year because the project is a statewide competitive program, and we didn't score high enough in the competitive process to warrant funding. And we really redoubled our efforts, and the programming staff, led by Steve Vandenberg, and the application was prepared by Ann Jensen and Sarkis Kacek of my staff. They really did a bang-up job on this application, and the score jumped from a 72 out of 100 to an 87 out of 100, and that really pushed it over the top and allowed the project to be funded. And we worked hard at the state level, doing some lobbying with some key folks to help get the project funded as well. The next few slides that I want to run through briefly just show what's happening with this project. This is the existing condition where bicyclists are forced to use a section about 3/4 of a mile long on Highway 101 to go either northbound or southbound. This particular photograph is looking southbound on Highway 101, and you can see these bicyclists are having to traverse the shoulder of Highway 101 to get from Carpinteria down to Rincon Beach. And then this shows what pedestrians face if they want to get from Carpinteria down to Ventura. They're forced to orient you. We're looking southbound again. Here's the UP railroad tracks, and then you can see 101 off in the distance here. And Rincon Beach, the parking lot is right down here, and Carpinteria Avenue is right off the map here. And for pedestrians, they have to go down a rather steep trail. It's pretty sketchy to walk down this trail, loose and unsure footing, and then cross the railroad tracks in an unauthorized crossing, and then continue on this single-track trail to get to Rincon Beach. The new project, the path, which is shown now looking northbound, is going to connect Carpinteria Avenue, which is right here. And there'll be a new bike and ride lot that's going to be constructed here at the end of Carpinteria Avenue. And the bike path will continue along an existing bench above Highway 101 and then traverse a new bridge that will be constructed to create a safe crossing of the Union Pacific Railroad tracks, and then down toward the beach and along to the Rincon County Park parking lot. And then the next slide shows a view sim of what the project will look like once it's completed with the new bridge that will be constructed over the Union Pacific Railroad tracks. We did get an approval order by the PUC last month in October for this new crossing, And we also have concept approval from Union Pacific. They're happy about this bridge because, of course, it reduces some of the pedestrian conflicts that occur at that unauthorized at-grade crossing. So again, that's great news. It helps to fund an important project, and it also helps to make that connection for bikes and pedestrians between Santa Barbara and Ventura County and complete the missing link, about a 1 mile link between Santa Barbara and Ventura counties. So with that, I'm going to now turn it over to Fred, who's going to talk about the Lynn and Casitas Pass projects.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning, directors. I think more on the order of more good news, we have started construction on Phase 3 of the Highway 101 project as of late September. We initiated that work with the project kickoff and groundbreaking event that was held on September 12th. That was well attended. You can see a photo there. That was held at the Carpinteria Middle School. That included a number of officials from Caltrans, SBCAG, local officials, and elected representatives. We are looking to continue work for the next 4 years. It's a very significant project, as we've described to the board in previous updates. There's a number of structures and road work that are required, and due to seasonal restrictions and the ability to maintain traffic, we anticipate construction occurring over 4 years, completed in 2020. This graphic we've used in some of the publications we've sent out as a map that shows the project components for the Lynn and Casitas project. I'm just going to describe generally some of the significant improvements that are going to be done as part of the project. We, of course, have the replacement of the bridges over Highway 101 at Linden Avenue and Casitas Pass, and those will be widened to improve traffic operations, and then there will also be there'll be improvements for pedestrian and bicycle traffic over those bridges to connect the north and south parts of the city of Carpinteria. There's also improvements that will be made to the Highway 101 bridges over Carpinteria Creek. Those bridges will be raised, and when completed, they will be able to handle or accommodate the 100-year flood capacity for Carpinteria Creek. They will also be lengthened or widened to accommodate the future widening of 101 so that we don't have to redo those bridges when the Phase 4 project comes in. And then a significant local improvement for traffic circulation in the city of Carpinteria will be the extension of Via Real. Via Real, if I can use my pointer here, currently terminates in a cul-de-sac right to the east of Carpinteria Creek. And that'll be extended to the west and for over a mile to ultimately hook up into Linden Avenue. That'll improve local circulation because a lot of local trips currently have to get on 101 to make a local trip just to get across town per se. And so that'll also be a significant a component of construction. In 2017. There'll be a new bridge crossing Carpinteria Creek that'll extend Via Real, in addition to the main line of 101 work over Carpinteria Creek. Oh, I should have done that first. Okay. So we've been here a couple times previously this year to describe what our planned outreach strategy is to talk to the community about the Phase 3 project with and be able to describe and actively have an engagement process with the community for the Lynn and Casitas project. In July, we mailed out a construction brochure, and I have some copies of that if you haven't seen it before. It was mailed to over 8,100 households and residents in the Carpinteria area. And so this basically described all the project improvements. It had the map. It described how to be in touch with the project team and have questions answered. And it also described by phase the improvements that are planned over the next 4 years. Since that time, we've also had, since July and up to the start of construction, there have been several community meetings with various stakeholder groups led by Ayers & Associates, who's under contract with SBCAG. And that work is being funded through the project via a co-op agreement we have with Caltrans. So we've been working in partnership and continue to have project team meetings on a monthly basis to strategize and be able to communicate the project components to community. Over the next couple slides, I'm just going to show a couple things that have been done related to the project construction work that has occurred since the start of construction in late September. This is a picture of Carpinteria Creek. And so these are the 101 bridges going north. You're looking northbound, the Casitas Pass off-ramp. And so due to permit restrictions and being able to work in Carpinteria Creek, there was a short window between the time we started construction and the time we were no longer allowed to work in Carpinteria Creek, about 5 or 6 weeks, where a lot of vegetation removal had to occur and tree removals. And so basically this is the result of clearing the area so that in the spring of next year we can go right in and start the bridge construction work for the Via Real extension, which will be coming on alignment in this area, and then the widening of the 101 bridges. And then you can see it's all set up for stormwater provisions. We have the fiber rolls in place for the winterization of the project. Some additional work that's ongoing related to like clearing and grubbing or vegetation removal is also occurring in the median behind K-Rail, and this allows the project team to get rid of that vegetation and then be able to add some widening elements on Highway 101 to be able to accommodate a traffic shift that will occur in the next few months, so that they're shifting traffic as they're doing portions of work and accommodating 2 lanes of traffic on 101 at all times. And then just to outline some upcoming work that will occur over the next couple months. They'll be continuing vegetation removal outside the creek area in areas near Linden Avenue and Ogun Road, removing some trees and getting ready for the roundabout construction and the bridge construction in that area. And then on the north side of Casitas Pass, away from the bridge. And then they'll continue work in the median of Highway 101 and on the shoulder widening. And then we haven't had any closures yet, short-term temporary closures as part of construction, but the first one that's anticipated is the Casitas Pass southbound on-ramp, which is a temporary short-term closure that's anticipated in the next couple months. So as I mentioned before, we continually meet with the community, and we have information as to how people can stay informed on the project. We have regular weekly updates on the construction progress that get sent out via subscription, so people that are interested in receiving update on the project can subscribe and get a weekly update as to the progress on the project. We also have a telephone hotline so that if they want to call, they can get their question answered, and we'll respond within 24 hours. And then there's a newly developed project website, sbroads.com, that has all the information on construction. It has the information that's in the construction brochure. It has all the archive of updates on the project. And then it's also been developed to accommodate, right now there's no content yet for the future Phase 4 when we get into that. So it's supposed to be a fully comprehensive 101 project website to address all the projects that would be going on in the corridor. The media has covered this actively and positively, and so this is just an example of some of the excerpts of covering the kickoff of the meeting, the work that's been done. They usually just publish the project updates that are sent out on a regular basis and to keep the community informed. And at this point, I'll hand it over, unless there's questions on the construction, I'll hand it over to Scott Eads, who's going to give us an update on the Phase 4 traffic ERR.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair?
I'm sorry, hold. Al, Mr. Clark?
Thank you. Well, my question is, thank you for the report on the Rincon Trail funding. There's another permit required project. Also, that's the Santa Claus Lane Trail, and I'm curious about the status of the efforts to raise funds for that project. Thank you.
I have an update at the very end of the presentation that'll talk about the Santa Claus Lane project, so if Director Clark would wait, I'll be happy to talk about it then.
Yeah, I'm sure that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'm Scott Eads, Corridor Manager for Caltrans for the South Coast 101 Corridor. So here I'm going to provide you with a brief update on a document that's just about to be released to the public associated with the environmental document for the HOV project. First, by way of background, we released the final environmental document for the HOV project back in August 2014. Within the 30-day the 30-day period that followed that, we received 2 lawsuits, CEQA-based lawsuits. The first was really focused on noise issues in a specific area within the project limits. And in November 2015, the judge ruled in favor of Caltrans or against the plaintiffs in that suit. And then the second suit was more far-reaching originally, and it was really quite broad-based originally, but then it ended up being very focused towards intersection analysis and the cumulative impacts associated with the intersection analysis. That suit, the judge ruled for the plaintiffs in December 2015, and the writ was issued in early January 2016. Next slide, please. Okay, I have it. Okay, so the summary of that ruling, basically the judge felt that Caltrans had balanced intersection analysis against the benefits associated with the mainline delay reduction. So in essence, Caltrans had viewed traffic as a single resource, saying that in essence there's significant delay reduction on the mainline and some minor changes on the local street systems with these intersections. And so on the whole, there's a net benefit, and that was a conclusion that Caltrans had drawn that the judge was not happy with. So the judge basically said you need to be more clear and more specifically focused on the intersection analysis as if it's a single resource, and provide more clear significant standards of significance and findings associated with that the intersections as a single resource. And another finding or another part of the judge's ruling that's very important is that he said that all other aspects of the environmental document remain valid and do not need to be revisited. So in context, there were thousands and thousands of pages of technical studies and the body of the environmental document. Approximately 30 pages dealt with intersection analysis. So it's really the focus of our work right now is just addressing and building on that 30 pages and the analysis associated with the intersection specifically. So we anticipate this draft revised EIR, which is the work product that's about to be released, will come out either next week or the following. We're in the final reviews with legal and headquarters, and so we're very close. But we are waiting approval on that until we receive those final comments and are able to incorporate those. Once the document is released, it'll be available online at the website we see here. It's the project website for the HOV project. We still have the original FED also posted on this website. And then there'll be hard copies of the document available at local public libraries, as well as the Caltrans District Office for viewing. We originally were looking at a 45-day public review period, but based on the city's request, City of Santa Barbara, we went ahead and moved that out to a 60-day public review period. And so that means that assuming we can get the document out in the next week or two, the comment period will be open until mid to late January. So the next steps, where we'll release the document, and then we'll hold a public hearing. We anticipate at this time that the public hearing would be close to the holiday season here, so we're trying to ensure that we get that before we're well into the holiday period. And we anticipate that it'll be a single public hearing in the city of Santa Barbara in the evening midweek, probably 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. We've been working with city staff. They've been very helpful, City of Santa Barbara staff, in helping us secure a facility. So as soon as we release the draft, we'll lock in a date, and there'll be public comment or public notices also in local newspapers to let people know that the document is out and available and when the public hearing will occur. And once we complete the public comment period, we'll be responding to those comments. And the comments that we'll be focused on in terms of our response will be anything that's related specifically to the revised EIR and the content in that. And then we'll wrap that up into a final EIR, and we anticipate that final revised EIR, and we anticipate that'll be released in spring of next year. So with that, unless there's any questions, I'll turn it over to Tony Harris.
Good morning, Chair and fellow board members. Thank you for the opportunity to give you an update on the work that has been taking place since the fall of last year. And this phase we have labeled and been referring to it as the decision point document phase. The first slide we have here is just to give you an overview of the project development process. And where we actually are in that process is kind of in between that environmental and working a lot on the design effort. So I like to always start with this to help people understand, where we are in the process going forward. The goals of this effort is really project readiness to enhance pursuit of funding, and I'm going to specifically talk about that as it relates to what we've been able to accomplish because of that. Generate more information so that we can help resolve some of the questions when we first started this. Look at ways to do alternative delivery, and then coordinating with the related projects, and also maintaining and increasing public support. So these are the goals we identified as we started this process, and they continue to be the goals. What has been done so far? And the left-hand column is activities that have been 100% completed. For example, mapping. We've done additional value analysis, and we conducted some cost-risk analysis work as well. And the right-hand column is all the activities that are currently underway by Caltrans and consultants on the contract to SBCAG. There is additional environmental studies related to the rehabilitation project, elements of the project that are taking place. There's preliminary work taken on design from a highway and bridge perspective. In addition to that, utilities, geotech. We're also working on cost estimates, which everybody's always want to know how much it costs. So we're working our way through all that information on cost estimate and beginning to look at different ways to look at how do we approach this from a construction phasing perspective. We've been working closely with the local agencies to understand what's going to be the coastal permitting process going forward as we move forward with this, so we can have that factor into the phasing process and begin to look at alternative delivery. There's a lot going on with a lot of people, and we are working very hard to be on track to come back with some very specific information, summaries, and recommendations in early 2017. I do want to talk about this one section in Carpinteria, and I mentioned this when I was last in front of you to give an update back in July. Earlier this year, the California Transportation Commission had the unfortunate task of deleting almost $750 million of funding from the STIP for transportation projects. And there was very focused on deleting funding from projects that had no construction funding program for it. One of the things, and this is a compliment to the SBCAG staff and working closely with California Transportation Commission staff, is identified a way to actually maintain and save the STIP funding that was already programmed for this project, not just SBCAG STIP funding, but also some of Caltrans STIP funding, so that that money would not be part of the full amount of it, would be part of the reduction of $750 million. What they were able to accomplish with this is to demonstrate to the California Transportation Commission that the segment within Carpinteria could be ready for construction sooner versus later. And as a result of that, the California Transportation Commission did not delete that funding. They left that funding on the project. Now, why did we believe that was possible? The reason we believe that was possible is Fred Luna, as part of his presentation, one of the key elements that was talked about at the Phase 3 project is improvements that would accommodate the future HOV improvements, some of the bridge work on the 101 in particular. That segment work is getting done as part of Phase 3 that makes it more viable to be able to move forward with the HOV within Carpinteria as an early on phase in particular. The design in the area is less complex as we see as we go further north in particular. In addition, with the city, there's already a local coastal plan amendment in place that we're working with the city looking at it in particular. And it links in with the HOV lane that's already in place. So the funding for construction for this project is currently programmed for fiscal year 1920. The team is exploring the possibility of having it ready to go to construction even sooner, maybe as soon as fiscal year 1819. It will not only be the HOV lane, but it will also include the rehabilitation components of it that will be funded by Caltrans within the shop. I wanted to highlight this to you as one of the things that you will see as part of the recommendation when we come back to you in early next year. Not really ask for action, but I wanted to frame it, wanted to not have any surprises, that this is one of the pieces that we think makes the most sense to get out of the gate and moving forward with. So timeline, we are on track to actually do a very detailed briefing and presentation of recommendations on how we proceed with the quarter-facing construction in March 2017 at your board meeting. And then shortly thereafter, be prepared for you to take the appropriate actions upon recommendation that will be coming forth from staff and Caltrans. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Fred to talk about the related projects.
Thank you. Before you leave, we have a question from Mr. Mosby.
Can you go back 2 slides? Can you elaborate on the leveraging of the shop funds?
The leveraging of the shop funds, the scope of the project is an HOV lane, but in addition to the HOV lane, part of the scope of the project will be rehabilitating the existing lanes, replacing those lanes and pavement, and make other related improvements. So what we've been able to do is use the STIP funds that have been programmed and identified by SBCAG and make a case to Caltrans headquarters that they should fund shop funds to go along with it, so you have a joint project and being able to do this one stretch and then be done and never have to come back for work. I give you an example. If you drive the section between South Air from Muscle Shoals to Carpinteria, you will see the HOV lane, and then you'll see old pavement next to it. What we're proposing to do is not have that situation. It would be a new facility all the way through.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, Mr. Luna, thank you. You know, we may have to revise this map a little bit and
So
show
that it
where
shows up
4A
better?
is.
Oh, okay.
No, because now we have a 4A. So we need to show where that is.
Okay, we'll be happy to do that.
Thank you so much.
This map shows the 101 related projects that Jim mentioned. There was 5 projects that are related to either the that was not me. That are either related to the Phase 3 project or the Phase 4 project. So we, starting from the south, the Rincon multi-use trail we mentioned previously, in the Santa Claus Lane Bikeway.
Hold on 1 second,
Okay.
Mr. Luna.
Mm-hmm.
Helene?
I've been trying to get your attention. Sorry.
Oh,
Can
we
you hear
just
me now?
heard this. Yes,
You just heard some voice from who knows where.
from the ether. Yes.
Okay. You know, since Mr. Luna started, I'll just wait. I also had a question about the funding for Mr. Harris, but I'll wait at this
we
point.
can go back. And I'm sorry I didn't.
That's all right. I'll just. I have other questions also, so I'll just wait till the end. That's
Okay. All right. Go ahead then, Mr. Luna.
Okay. He's getting the slideshow back up. Okay, so I was mentioning the Rincon Trail and the Santa Claus Lane Bikeway. The Santa Claus Lane Bikeway, Director Clark was asking about, and I'll be providing an update. Both of these projects were conditions of approval with the Phase 3 Linda Casitas project. And then the San Isidro interchange or San Isidro intersection improvements, Olive Mill Roundabout, and the Cabrillo Underpass were 3 projects that were specifically mentioned by this board in January 2014 for us as SBCAG staff and the court advisor team to continue to work with local agencies and move those projects further along in development as the 101 proceeded as well. And so I'll give an update on all these projects. Mr. Kemp covered the Rincon Trail, but just as a way of status, we've done a lot of work up to this point that was helpful in securing the ATP funding to show that we've put our own money into moving this project forward. We've completed CEQA with the City of Carpinteria. A coastal development permit has also been secured within the City of Carpinteria. This project spans both the city's jurisdiction and the county's jurisdiction, so it would still need a CDP from the County of Santa Barbara. As Jim mentioned, we have concept approval from UPRR, and then also within the last month, we were able to get the PUC approval for the grade crossing at their hearing in San Francisco that was held in October. So the next steps for the Rincon Trail project are to move into the detailed design phase, the right-of-way phase, and the coastal permitting with the county. And so we've been having regular status meetings with the project development team to plan out those activities over the next year or so. ATP funds will fully fund the construction phase, construction capital, and management of that project. And as Jim noted, the project is scheduled to start construction in 2019. So the other project, the one that Director Clark had mentioned, that's a condition of approval with the Linden Casitas project, is the Santa Claus Lane Bikeway. This is also another coastal trail project that will fill a gap in the California Coastal Trail, approximately 0.6 of a mile. It also is a joint jurisdiction project in that it's within the city of Carpinteria and the county of Santa Barbara. The Santa Claus Lane on the north side is within the county, and that's right at the Santa Claus Lane on-ramp as where the project would start. It would run along the southbound lanes of Highway 101 and then exit at Carpinteria Avenue and connect into the local system on Carpinteria Avenue within the city of Carpinteria. So SBCAG has been leading this effort using consultant resources. We've had Measure A grants to help fund that work. We've been working closely with county and city staff and Caltrans. Key component of this, of course, is as the HOV rehab project is being designed, we've been working closely with the Caltrans design team to make sure that the Bikeway project and the 101 project are being designed so that they're compatible with one another. And then now we've recently had discussions with the county and the city to how they would like to see it connected at Santa Claus Lane and Carpinteria Avenue, respectively. And so those meetings are ongoing. This project, and I guess this would answer Director Clark's question, is now that we've been able to fund the Rincon project, this was seen as our second priority project to move forward with ATP potential cycle funding. So we would look to continuing to prepare this project and getting it additionally more ready for applying for an ATP cycle in the future and to fund the construction of this project. And then the three projects that are more closely related to the Phase 4 101 project are the Cabrillo Underpass and then Olive Mill and San Isidro. So starting with Cabrillo. This project was a feasibility study was completed by the city of Santa Barbara, which looked at the potential for replacing the bridge at along Cabrillo Boulevard, the UPRR bridge. As a result of that feasibility study, the city did get concept approval from UPRR. And so then we've moved into a subsequent phase of work in which an MOU was executed in May of this year. And that MOU describes the city taking the lead for what's being called the preliminary engineering and environmental phase of the work. Basically, they're going to continue to refine the engineering and try to get more solid cost estimates, look at the environmental impacts of this type of project. And then this project is being led by the city. They have a consultant on board. Work was commenced in August of this year. We continue to coordinate with the HOV design teams, the team that SBCAG has hired to do the northern segment design, sharing information for the same reasons to make sure that the projects are being designed and they're compatible with one another. And that information has been shared in recent months as the city's team has gotten on board. The funding that's assigned to this project is from old gas tax money and a federal HSIP grant that are in the order of about $2.5 million, and that money is enough to get through this current phase and potentially through detailed design, but there's no funding for construction on this project. I think we've mentioned before that preliminary estimates for this project are in the order of about $25 million to complete that. So one of the things the city's consultant is looking at is the potential for outside funding sources that could be brought to bear or to reduce the cost, of course. And so that's something that we expect as an outcome of the work that's being done. The target completion for at least the environmental studies, this current phase that the city's leading, is early 2018. And then moving into the Olive Mill and San Isidro intersection improvements. So we've been treating these projects together because the city and the county have wanted to continue to discuss these projects as one effort going on right now. They're fairly similar in nature because both projects are looking at proposing roundabout solutions for at some of the intersections. The city of Santa Barbara, through a consultant, completed a feasibility study or an intersection control evaluation study in the Caltrans world, which documented a roundabout at the intersection of Olive Mill, Coast Village, and North Jameson. They finished that in early 2016. The county's working on a similar study, and they're nearing completion, and they expect to have that completed by the end of this calendar year. So we've continued to have coordination meetings with City, Caltrans, and the county to discuss both these projects and then how we would move these projects into the next phase of project development. We've mentioned to this board that we've identified a federal earmark to be used to that was for US 101 operational improvements from an old federal transportation bill, Safety Lou, that's been unused by SBCAG, and we've tried to use it for various types of improvements. But it seems that since these are local and related to the operational improvements on 101, because they do involve some of the ramps, that this earmark could be used for those two projects in the next phase of project development. So we're still scoping out what that work would be and when that would start, but we've brought a draft of an MOU to the South Coast Subregional back earlier this year, and we're looking to refine that and bringing that back to that committee and then for board approval in the next few months in early 2017. So by way of summary, just real quickly, I think the biggest news on Linda Casitas is that we've started construction. It's a 4-year construction project, and you'll see more significant work in 2017 when the bridge construction will start. You heard Mr. Eads talk about the potential for the public hearing that's being planned for the traffic revised EIR in December. And then the decision point documents, we will plan a presentation to this board in March to give our phasing recommendation, which will focus, as Mr. Harris mentioned, on segment 4A within the city of Carpinteria. And then the related projects, we're making progress on those. We're working per the board direction with the local agencies on each of those projects. We secured funding for the Rincon project, and now we're going to be moving on to the next projects in priority order. So with that, we're here to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's go to Mayor Schneider.
Thank you. I first have a question for Mr. Eads. We can start there.
Okay.
Thanks. I so saw yesterday the PowerPoint and seeing that the additional draft's coming out next week, and we appreciate the 60-day public hearing piece. I know you've talked to the city staff quite a bit about the timing of that. I don't think we expected it to happen in between Thanksgiving, the holiday season, Christmas, and Martin Luther King weekend. So, those 60 days are going to be kind of truncated. But, just trying to keep that in mind and making sure the public is aware of the 60-day period during a very busy personal family holiday time. I did talk to City Administrator Paul Casey, and so we're going to schedule a City Council hearing on January 10th. It's our first meeting of the year.
Ms. Schneider, hold on for a second because we can't hear you. Let's get our sound working.
Yeah, the sound is off.
So my mic is going on and off. Maybe I'll move to another mic. Can you hear me?
Maybe come up to the podium.
How's this mic? Is that better?
Can you hear me?
Podium works. He's in the control room behind.
How's that? Can you hear me?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, there we go. We're just doing a little AV technical things. Okay, I was saying we appreciate the 60-day Hearing notice out of 45. A little concerned that that's happening between Thanksgiving, holiday season, Christmas, New Year's, and Martin Luther King weekend. And so just want to make sure that the public's aware, especially during the busy holiday season in December, that they know about the Caltrans public hearing. So we'll be looking to that, and I know you're working with staff on a date and time. I also spoke with Paul Casey, our city administrator, and we're going to put on our city council agenda so the full council can have their hearing on January 10th. It's the only meeting in January that fits within the time period because we go dark the day after Martin Luther King Day. So I hope, Mr. Eads, you or someone from Caltrans can be there that day. It'll be January 10th, most likely in the afternoon. So I hope that's possible. So I just wanted to clarify that. I don't know if you've talked to staff since in the recent week or so since the new timing of the ZIR is coming out.
Did you want to respond?
Yeah. Short answer is I haven't heard about a specific date until now, but we'll certainly. As far as I know, that date works. So I'll coordinate with staff and others, as well as city staff, to make sure that works for us.
Thank you. Yeah, it's the only council date in January before the deadline that would work. So
Hold on again, Mayor Schneider.
Yeah.
We can't hear you.
Yes.
We need our county staff to remain in the room. Dante, if you could stay in the room. I don't know if you can hear me right now.
I can hear you fine.
Oh, there we go.
I can hear you again.
Now you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. He just entered the room and it worked, so I don't know what it is. You have to stay there. Stay there.
No.
Those are my questions for Mr. Eads, so thank you. And then Mr. Harris, I have a question for Mr. Harris.
Okay, and he's coming right up.
Yep, I can see him. Thank you for the update. So I just want to make sure I understand the funding piece clearly on I guess it's Section A of Phase 4, right, which is the Carpinteria segment of the widening of the freeway. So as I'm understanding it, that $4 million of STIP funds that SBCAG receives, we want to allocate towards part of the project, and then you're suggesting, if I'm understanding correctly, to use SHOP funds or to ask for SHOP funds to leverage that $4 million STIP funds and get additional SHOP funds to pay for Section A. Is that correct?
That is correct. I mean, there's $4 million that if it wasn't identified to be programmed for construction, the CTC would have deleted that money and it wouldn't have been available. So we suggested to the CTC that we could use it for construction, and to use it for construction, it had to be shown in an early year. So that's why that's the one piece we felt confident that we could make that date. So we would use that money. We would use that to ask for additional SHOP money from Caltrans. We're still working on a cost estimate for that, so we may have to use some other funds to make it whole. But I would like to ask Director Govins to comment on the SHOP funding, because I feel pretty confident we will obtain that money. So, Tim?
Yes, thank you, Tony. Chair, directors, we've worked very close with SBCAG staff and your corridor advisor. We have programmed some SHOP money. We had arranged it to do most of the pre-construction activities, but I'm confident we can rearrange that to do some of the early construction as well as receive more to do it. The benefits of doing our rehabilitation work together with the HOV lane, as was mentioned by Mr. Harris, it leaves us with a complete roadway we don't have to come back to. We don't have the old road next to the new one. We can share costs. Things like traffic control that each project would have to do individually would lower the cost for each of them. Economy of scale, we'd hope that all of the unit prices would come down by doing a larger job. It doesn't mean that we can use SHOP funding for the actual new lanes, but we can use it for a lot of things that are in the project.
Thank you.
Great. Well, Mr. Harris, then your understanding of how state transportation funding works is coming in very well here, and so I appreciate your thinking in that capacity. My final question then, again, is about Santa Claus Lane, And it's unfortunate that there's no funding available for it, especially that it's a condition of approval for the project. And I don't know if this is a question for Mr. Gubbins or Mr. Kemp or where, but especially if the CTC is going to eliminate future STIP money because of their financial concerns, I guess there's a longer term question here of where funding's going to come for the entire Phase 4 project, especially if STIP funds beyond this $4 million is in jeopardy. So maybe you could comment on that. But the Santa Claus Lane section is also very important, especially as a condition of approval.
Chair and Director Schneider, I'll take a stab at addressing that. I think we see the Santa Claus Lane project funding question very much in the same light as we see the Rincon Trail project. The project did not have any funding or prospects of funding when we began work on it, and we continued to make progress on completing the environmental document and getting the project plans prepared, and that positioned the project and made it more competitive for state active transportation program funds, which ultimately, as we mentioned earlier, we were successful in receiving. I think we're going to take exactly the same strategy and approach to try to get the Santa Claus Lane project funded. We don't have construction funding approved today, but we do have funding that we're working on, the environmental document for that project, and we intend to submit it for future cycles of ATP funding.
Do both conditions of approval have to be either in progress or completed or funded before Phase 4 is awarded a contract?
I believe the coastal plan amendment that was approved by the State Coastal Commission and the City of Carp requires that both projects be completed before completion of the Phase 3 project.
Before Phase 3, not Phase 4. Okay, so we need to find funding for Santa Claus Lane bike path before 2020 when the bridges Phase 3 is completed. Is that correct?
Just one clarification on that. So for the Santa Claus Lane, the LCPA that Jim mentioned, the condition is specific to the adjacent segment of the Highway 101 Phase 4. And so there is a little bit more time related to that because we haven't, as Mr. Harris indicated, we're only focusing in on a portion of the Phase 4 construction. And so Phase 3 is completed in 2020. That segment that's adjacent to the Santa Claus Lane of Highway 101 improvement hasn't been scheduled for construction yet. So there is more time related to when that condition of approval would kick in and require us to be completed with that project.
Thanks.
So for the SHOP funds and for construction for Part A of Phase 4, the Santa Claus Lane segment needs to be completed. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Phase 4.
The adjacent segment, which there's a portion of it in segment 4A, but yeah, it's more related to that portion of the Highway 101 Phase 4 project. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to get the chronology of events and the funding pieces together because it is complicated. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mosby.
I guess for Mr. Kemp, I mean, ATP funding is very competitive. Does this affect any other projects in the county that potentially were looking for ATP funding in this cycle?
Director Mosby, the way that the ATP projects are funded, it's through a statewide competitive program, and the decisions are made by the California Transportation Commission. Each agency is eligible to submit applications for ATP funding, and they're evaluated at the statewide level and selected by the Transportation Commission.
But initially they're evaluated at the local level before you file an application.
There's
well, no, wait a minute, because you are going to. I mean, Mr. Vandenberg shaking his head no, but obviously if you have 2 projects or 3 projects, you're going to try not to submit competing yourself. So they are competing originally before you file at the own level here within staff.
So we don't set priorities for all of the projects that are nominated from within our region. So each, and as I'll talk about for a little bit more on my executive director's report, there are other projects that were nominated for cycle 3 of the active transportation program by local agencies that were funded at the state level. So those projects, they're all sent off by the local agencies. There's no priority setting of all the projects from our region by this board. They get nominated to the state, and the state chooses from among all the projects.
And how many did you send on the last cycle?
We just sent for SBCAG.
SBCAG.
SBCAG
yes.
sent one project, the Rincon Trail project.
Right, and because I had talked to you before about this, and you mentioned that you have to be careful about sending more than one because you don't want to compete against yourself.
Correct. Right.
So that's what I'm getting at with there. There is a competitive, and that's why I'm looking at: are we limiting our focus here because we know of this? Are there other areas in the county that potentially had something going forward?
Well, part of our strategy with submitting only the Rincon project, in the past we've submitted more than one project, but we felt that because of the ask that we were making, it was $6.8 million. It's a large project relative to the usual size of project that's funded from the program, and we felt that in order to get the project, have the project get a reasonable chance of getting funded, that we had to focus efforts on one project and not compete against ourselves on getting a project funded.
Yeah, that's what
So I think that the next, as I mentioned, the next project that we would be coming back to the board to request funding for would be the Santa Claus Lane project, and pour our efforts into getting that project out of the next cycle of ATP.
Because I've mentioned one to you before about a certain project in my area of getting potentially funded this way. So there are potential conflicts already and competitions already.
Okay. Do we have any other comments or questions? We do have a public speaker. So let's go to our public speaker, Mr. Scott Wentz.
Chair Wolf, members of the board, Scott Wins representing Cars Are Basic. We've made this comment before. Mr. Clark doesn't agree with us. The coastal trail bike path along Santa Claus Lane is a waste of money. You already have a bicycle path on the other side of the freeway. It saves approximately half a city block in distance. Now you're looking at a person, until I hurt myself, did 50 to 75 miles a week every week on my bike. On weekends and on holidays, I was doing 100 to 150 miles a week. So you're not going to convince me that half a block savings for $1 million for 6/10 of a mile is worth that $1 million. An awful lot of pavement can go down on the roads and fix the freeways for that money. And then let's go to the issue of the Olive Mill roundabout. The Montecito Planning Commission, in joint meeting with the Santa Barbara Planning Commission, said unalterably they were opposed to a roundabout at Olive Mill. I asked the city of Santa Barbara to pull the accident records at Olive Mill and Coast Village Road. There, in essence, is no accident issue there. I've talked with people who live there. They're not interested in a roundabout there. Mr. Harris has pointed out the fact that a roundabout will probably impact the off-ramp and the holding capacity of Olive Mill. Then there's the San Ysidro proposal for a roundabout. Come on. You just got through spending, what, $5.5 million within the last 10 years for the Jameson Lane and Ortega Ridge bike path? You put in walking paths for pedestrians, and now you want to put in a roundabout at this location that are not pedestrian, bicycle, or ADA compliant? That's a waste of taxpayer money. And this is the lack of long-term planning and concept of what we're talking about. This is why the letter that I submitted to you on Monday has been put in there. You have to start having these people look at these programs and look at what's going on. The city of Santa Barbara says, oh, this project's going to impact our roads. No, the city of Santa Barbara's destinations impact the roads, the beaches, the mission. You get rid of all of those destinations, guess what? You don't have traffic. City of Carpinteria is putting in new improvements down by the beach. It's going to draw traffic. But you continue to narrow the roads and impact them. This type of thing has to stop. And unless project managers and city managers and council members are held to a level of honesty, then you're never going to fix this. This is a waste of taxpayer money. And by the way, the cab option for this Phase 4, particularly on Cabrillo Boulevard, has not been discussed. And we can save pedestrians and bicyclist accidents with our option. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wentz. Do we have any questions or comments? Mr. Lavagnino.
Comment, or at least if Mr. Kemp can touch on this in his report. I was just reading today in Associated Press. It was talking about tax revenue being up in the state, and they're anticipating close to a $3 billion surplus. What's the mood? I mean, we continually still see CTC funding being cut. And I guess Mr. Gubbins can speak to this as well. They already have an $11 billion rainy day surplus fund, and we're creating another $3 billion surplus this year, but we continue to see transportation funding get cut. Is there any deal in the works? What are you hearing in Sacramento? And I'd just like you guys to touch on that if you could in your report.
Mr. Kemp?
I can cover that under my executive director's report. And
well, maybe
Mr.
you can
Gummins
just
as well.
answer it
Okay.
now.
So, yeah, the fundamental problem, of course, with STIP funding is that the gas tax is a declining source of revenue. And that was the primary reason behind the CTC eliminating $750 million in STIP funding. So the fact that there's a general fund surplus, good for the state, but not necessarily good for transportation in the state, because the transportation improvements are funded primarily through the state gas tax.
That's through a policy decision, though?
Yes.
Okay.
And as far as prospects for action, there, of course, the legislature for pretty much this entire 2-year legislative session has been talking about different options for increasing revenues for transportation through a variety of different sources, most of which involve some type of a tax or fee increase, either a gas tax, vehicle license fee, using cap and trade funds. The legislature, of course, the session is winding down. There is a special session that remains in effect until, I believe, the end of November. So the legislature, in theory, could come back and take action during the lame duck period here, but I'm not optimistic that the legislature is ready or poised to do something about that.
All right, thank you. Mr. Adam?
Well, this thing is really a hard one for me, because I know that all these conditions are part of this project, and it's been approved based on all the presence of all these conditions and stuff, and I don't want to hold the project up, but at some point we're talking about a $3 billion surplus at the state level, except for you got Mr. Gubbins 100-odd billion of deferred maintenance in your road system at the state level. We have a colossal $250 million at our local level. We got to reprioritize this money. You just can't take this much money out of the community multiple times. You just keep taking it, and we're never going to be able to catch up on all of our infrastructure needs that we have to provide. So, I think I hate to vote for this, because it pays us to do the wrong thing. But at the same time, it's gone through its process, and maybe there's got to become a realization that in the future these projects can't include this kind of candy and gingerbread that gets added to projects typically. I don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Adam. I just have I have a couple comments. One is, I think it was Mr. Luna or maybe it was Mr. Harris who talked about designing the 101 with the I think it was with the assumption that the Cabrillo that bridge would be replaced, the $20 million bridge. And my concern is that if we're designing the project with that assumption, what happens if that doesn't happen? Because that is such a big ticket item, the bridge. So would we have to then redesign that portion of the 101? And I guess the other thought is, why don't we design it without the notion of the bridge, and then if the money comes through, then look at what we're going to do?
Point of clarification, we are designing it as a standalone project and is not dependent upon the bridge being replaced.
Okay.
I think what Mr. Loon was talking about is we're sharing information with the cities so they can understand what the design information, and we can actually have that information coordinated. But both projects are being looked at and designed as standalone projects.
Okay, that's good to know. And what about the Olive Mill Road in San Ysidro?
Again, all of those are standalone. I mean, they're independent projects. What we're doing is we're sharing information, but each project's all been looked at as independent, standalone, separate designs.
So the off-ramp design to Olive Mill won't change regardless of what happens with the roundabout?
Regardless of what happened with the roundabout, correct. But as we looked at the rehabilitation of the roadway in that corridor area, there will be some potential ramp improvements related to the freeway improvements, but that's not driven by a roundabout.
Okay, well, that's really good to know.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Madam Chair, can you
yes.
hear me?
Yes.
Just to add to that, just to put in context, it's been said by SBCAG, by Caltrans, by City of Santa Barbara Planning Commission that most likely the Cabrillo Bridge will be a condition of approval for a coastal development permit for that part of Phase 4. And because that was part of Phase 1 that never happened. So Tony Harris is completely correct in terms of the design and what the project is. That's what's been going forward. But it has been talked about the entire time that when it comes to a coastal development permit from the city, that most likely this will be a condition of approval.
Wow. So
that has been said, and that has been said for at least 5 years now, over and over and over again, including Mr. Hart, talking to us, talking to, the city, Mr. Kemp, the entire time of when this was an issue of whether the bridge and the roundabout should be part of the 101 Phase 4 or not, and the answer was that we don't have to do it because you could make it conditions of approval for your coastal development permit. That is what has been said now for the last 5 years.
do you have any comments on that? Does anyone have any comments on that? Mr. Kemp?
Staff is acting under the direction that was given by the SBCAG board in January of 2014 to when the board made the decision to urge Caltrans to proceed with the HOV project on a standalone basis, not to include the related projects, including the Cabrillo Bridge replacement, as part of the HOV project. But as part of that motion, the board directed staff to work on those parallel projects to help develop those projects and to get those completed. And that's what staff is taking its direction from.
That was my understanding. Thank you. And the second comment that I had is that I just want to compliment all of our SBCAG staff, for moving us through this process, which has just seemed like a quagmire. And that sometimes I think, at least for me, I felt like we were stuck and things just weren't looking that positive. And I think with all of your expertise, you've done an incredible job in getting us funding on some really important projects to move us forward. And also to our outside consultant, Mr. Harris, thank you for your work. And Caltrans, that cooperative spirit of working together to get us through. Now we're seeing 4A. We've got to get through B, C, and D. And it's going to take us, hopefully we'll all be alive by then. But I'm confident that we're definitely making some excellent progress. So I just want to express our appreciation to all of you. All right,
Question.
Mr. Lavagnino.
Thank you. And I would agree with that, except over the last minute, I got a little apprehensive there. So I think when does...
Just ignore it.
I know, but I would like to know when the city of Santa Barbara is going to make... What's the timeline when they make a determination of... When does that happen when they say, yes, it's going to be a condition of approval? Years.
Yes, I would say years because, as we've noted, we're starting the project, the HOV project Phase 4 in Carpinteria.
Right.
And we'll be recommending that the board formally endorse that in March. We've got a lot of work ahead of us to complete the plans, and so we won't be in front of the city asking for permits for several years yet.
So what chunk would that be of Phase 4? I mean, so we're going to do 4A. I mean, it could only be within the city of Santa Barbara, correct? Of where they could hold back that condition for approval?
Yes.
So theoretically, you could have it all from both sides just come down to this
Yes.
pretzel.
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
Cool.
Which we are hoping doesn't happen.
And,
All right,
and
this,
if I might add,
oh,
if we just had abandoned all the bike paths, if we had all the money, hey, look, if we had all the money that we've spent on bike paths and are going to, we could replace the bridge. And, you know, this is what we're supposed to be doing, is looking at the transportation infrastructure. And, you know, we spend an inordinate amount of time being obsessed with bike paths here.
Well, I think it was the Coastal Commission's condition of approval.
Well,
I know we don't like to talk about that.
I realize that, but the thing is at some point, this society, including the Coastal Commission, has become a little unreasonable, and we have to push back on that.
I would
Okay,
also say,
next
though,
meeting we'll take that up.
That we have to remember the
in
reason.
January when you're vice chair.
The reason why we got the money in the first place, though, is from Measure A that people approved, and the reason why they approved it in the South County is because they think a little bit differently and wanted bike paths and all that as part of why they wanted to approve it. So I don't think you see a lot of bike paths up here, but.
We're going to go to Ms. Sierra.
Just a quick comment. Yeah, it kind of bothers me. Measure A, North County and South County had different ideas of how voters wanted their money spent. It kind of bothers me that some of these roundabouts and passes that are coming up now with the HOV, the 101 widening, it was a traffic problem before then. Before this widening, it's a traffic problem right now. And yet, instead of spending the money on fixing the traffic problem, they're going with bike paths. And I do have a problem with that, too.
Okay, so this is a receive and file report, so we don't have to take any action, but we do appreciate all of you coming and giving us an update. All right, number 9.
Chair members, I indicated earlier that there were other projects that were approved in Cycle 3 of the Active Transportation Program in addition to the Rincon Trail project. And we did prepare and provide you with a handout that you should have in front of you. It's this chart here, kind of small print, but it does show in the yellow highlighting 3 other projects that were approved in the Cycle 3 of ATP. The City of Santa Barbara received funding, a recommendation, I should clarify. It's a recommendation by Commission staff that is subject to approval by the Commission at its December 7th and 8th meeting. 2 projects in the City of Santa Barbara. The East Side Green Lanes and Bike Boulevard Gap Closure Project is recommended for $2.7 million. And then the West Side Bike Boulevard Gap Closure Project, $4.4 million. And the 4th project, the City of Buellton, Safe Routes to School improvements at the intersection of Highway 246 and Sycamore Road. So congratulations to the City of Santa Barbara and to the City of Buellton on their successful applications. I would point out that in this cycle, the Cycle 3 of ATP, that we This was our most successful year yet as a region, a total of $14.7 million in active transportation program funding for the 4 projects in Santa Barbara County. Just for context, there's about $158 million available statewide. So we received almost 10% of the statewide pot in our county for those 4 projects. There were about 450 projects that were submitted to the State Transportation Commission for that $158 million, and only 50 of them were funded. So we got 4 out of the 50 projects that were funded. So this is our most successful year in the ATP program. We've done quite well in other years as well. Local agencies in Santa Barbara County, all told through all 3 cycles of ATP that have been that have gone on, have received almost $35 million in ATP funding. So we're cranking out good applications and also learning as we go along what works in this program. Again, this is subject to the approval by the CTC at its meeting in Riverside in December. I wanted to let you know that there were several counties that had local transportation sales tax measures on the ballot in November, including some in the Central Coast region. San Luis Obispo, Monterey, and Santa Cruz all had sales tax measures on the ballot. It's still very close for each of them, but it appears that San Luis Obispo County's measure is going to fail by a slim margin. I think the last time I looked, it was about 65.5% in favor. Requires a 66 2/3 vote, so they missed it by just maybe a few thousand or a few hundred votes. The measures in Monterey and Santa Cruz County, however, look like they are going to pass. They're still counting provisional ballots, but they are above the 2/3 margin, barely. But it looks like they're holding on and are likely to pass. So they will join the ranks of self-help counties like Santa Barbara County with our Measure A. In addition, there were 2 other counties, Merced and Stanislaus counties, appear to have passed sales tax measures for transportation as well. Unfortunately, Ventura County to our south had a measure on the ballot. I think this is the 3rd time that they've attempted to pass a local transportation sales tax measure. I don't believe it's going to get above 60% support. I think it's around 57% support. So unfortunately, our 2 neighbors to the north and south of us are not going to be joining the ranks of self-help counties, it appears. You have in your packet a letter from Caltrans regarding the Highway 246 Robinson Bridge project, and I believe this speaks to a question that Director Mosby had earlier. This is some good news. It appears, well, up to now, we've been told that the Robinson Bridge on Highway 246 that crosses over San Ynez River is structurally sufficient and does not need replacement. Caltrans has been reevaluating this bridge, and they have, in fact, now placed it on what they call their scour critical list, which means that it does have some issues with regard to the structure, and it appears that it is going to be eligible at some point in the future for replacement, which means that it would be eligible for Caltrans SHOP funding as a replacement project. This is not imminent. It's going to require funding. Caltrans has, as has been noted earlier, a great need for rehabilitation funding and bridge replacement funding. And so this project will have to be placed on a list, and funding will have to be identified through the pretty tapped out SHOP program. But at least now it is eligible for bridge replacement funds, whereas before it was not even an eligible project. And of course, if the bridge is eligible for replacement, it would be built to current standards, which means it would be designed for a 100-year flood event, and it would also be widened to accommodate bicycles and pedestrians according to current design standards. So that's really helpful news for us, and we will continue to work with Caltrans to try to see what we can do to expedite the the funding for this project. Of course, we do have Measure A funding that was allocated for this project, $8 million out of the North County share of the Measure A project. So we do have some funding available for the project as well.
Mr. Kemp, before you go on, Supervisor Adams' question.
So that request for the last 10 years inspection records, did that help to clarify? No? Okay. It's just magically coincidental? All right. Well, hey, I like a happy coincidence, don't you? Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Kemp.
Okay, and the Federal Department of Transportation announced earlier this month the designation of 55 highways around the country as alternative fuel corridors, which are capable of accommodating electric vehicles or those that are powered by hydrogen, propane, or natural gas. This is something that was required to be done under the FAST Act that was passed in 2015, where the U.S. DOT was required to designate these corridors in an effort to facilitate the transition from fossil fuels to alternative fuels. Importantly, I'm pleased to report that Highway 101 along the Central Coast was nominated by the Central Coast Coalition together with Ventura County for this alternative fuels corridor. And the US 101 along the Central Coast was designated as part of or one of these 55 highways around the country as an alternative fuel corridor. It doesn't necessarily come with funding to do improvements to the highway, but it certainly does increase the profile of that highway as an important link in furthering the use of alternative fuels, and perhaps in the future will, with future funding programs, bring additional funding with it. It is one of the corridors that is designated by the DOT as part of a sign ready. We're not exactly sure what that means, but presumably in the future that where you see signs along the highway designating off-ramps that lead to fueling stations, that it will also include those that have alternative fuels such as hydrogen or electric vehicle charging stations.
Mr. Kemp, before you go on, Mayor Patino.
So, Mr. Kemp, does this mean that cities along this route are going to be required then to have the electrical vehicle charging stations?
Mayor Patino, no. This is just no requirements are attached to it. It simply is intended to be more informational, to point out to the traveling public when there are alternative fueling facilities, including electric vehicle charging stations that are available for
because
use.
We had to add to our municipal code these vehicle charging stations. And this is the new code in the state of California, so I'm assuming all cities have had to do it and counties. So I didn't know if that was going to make a requirement also.
There's no requirement for locating or funding these facilities.
Just the signs that there are charging stations.
Correct.
Okay. Well, the next step will be that we'll be required, I'm sure.
But that'll be good. People will get off the freeway and then go shop in Santa Maria and charge their phones. I mean, their cars. Charge your phones. Whatever. Yeah, we do have charging. We do have those charging stations. Do you want to say something, Mr. Bennett?
I just wanted to say, based on Mayor Patino's comments, that we worked in the city of Goleta with Costco and with the local Nissan dealership, and they put up the money so that we have a charging station at Costco, because it's a fast charger. It takes about 20, 25 minutes to get 85% of charge. But that's enough time to run in and shop, spend money, and we are designated. There is an app on your phone that you can acquire, and that app does designate that location. So we do use it. People do use it, and they do shop at Costco when they do that. So we get the sales tax, and we didn't put up but a very small amount of money in order for this to happen. This was private industry that made it happen.
Well, because we have the new Costco going in right down the road here, so I'm sure they'll be doing that.
You can encourage them to do that and work with the Nissan dealership or maybe Chevy or one of the others that has cars that can be charged up. because I think this is the future, this public-private partnership that can make it really work to your benefit.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kemp?
Yeah, finally, I just wanted to let the board members know by action earlier on your agenda through the consent calendar, you canceled the December board meeting. It's likely that since we're not having a board meeting in December, that we would likely cancel both the North and the South County sub-regional committees meetings as well. I just wanted to let you know about that. That concludes my report.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Kemp. The next item is Mr. Gubbins.
Thank you, Chair, Directors. I was going to call your attention to the letter that you had in your packet on the Robinson Bridge. And since that was adequately covered by your Exec Director, I'll just say we will continue to work with your staff and make sure that Director Mosby and Adam are informed as we move forward with that process. A couple other items just to bring up. The pavement job we've been doing on State Route 154 will be continuing, and we'll have some paving continuing this week, as well as 101 from Hollister Road up to Refugio. That is continuing until Friday of this week. We'll be doing the pavement, and we're hoping to wrap up that completely by December. Last item I had is in the city of Santa Barbara. We've worked with the Bike Coalition and city staff down there. Those of you who may have experienced Castillo Street under 101 may know we've had some water leaking onto the bridge or onto the slab for quite a while. We've done things like pavers that have actually worked for about 7 years, and then they deteriorated enough we had to replace them. The last time we did that, it has not given us the life that we were hoping for. It has deteriorated much more quickly. And so we're working on a project to do an alternative solution there. But in the meantime, it is at the stage that we have to do something because that roadway surface being both wet and rough. And so we put out a press release earlier this week, and we'll be doing some signing next week for bicycle detours, where bicyclists will either have a choice of following some signed detours or dismounting and acting as a pedestrian for just about a little over a block underneath the structure itself so that they're not riding in the lane where it is not at this time appropriate surface for them to ride on. So we'll be working through that. In our talks with the Bike Coalition and the city staff, we're trying to find dates for an outreach meeting in January where we can have our engineers come down and talk about the more short-term solution that we think will solve the surface issue, and we'll work on that. And I think the reason we're doing things in the shorter term, we're hoping this next solution, once we have the engineering done, will actually be a long term, because replacing the entire interchange is a very expensive proposal. And so I don't know when we'd ever get funding for that. And so we need to do something so that all users of the roadway can use this. So in the meantime, a bicycle detour will be starting next week. And with that, those are all the items I wanted to bring up, but I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
All right, thank you. We have Mr. Adams, then Ms. Schneider, and Ms. Sierra, and then Ms. Farr.
I just wanted to compliment your pavement, both on 154, which I hardly ever take, but I did recently. In fact, it was election night when I came back from Santa Barbara. And I forgot that you had that going on, but I'm so happy to drive over it, and it's just beautiful. And that Refugio to Hollister, my goodness, what a I can hear my cell phone now. It's just the best. I love it.
Remember to pay attention to the road, though.
Yeah. No, I always pay attention. I would just remind you that you got Fiesta coming up, and if you're going to have rebar exposed again, all the horsemen that ride next to the rebar will thank you if you put the little orange caps on them, so that when we get bucked off or the horse falls down, we don't get impaled on the rebar. That was kind of scary last time I rode under there, and there was a construction project going on.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Adam. Ms. Schneider.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Mr. Gubbins and Caltrans for working with the city and the Bike Coalition, especially on that underpass, because it if you're not paying attention on a bike, it could really hurt you. There's some craters in there now, and I know how frustrating it must be to have that resurface after a major project just about a year ago. So I appreciate that you're looking into this again, and hopefully we'll find the magic process. It's annoying because there's water there, but that's the only place in Santa Barbara we seem to have water that sort of stays, right? So it's just the irony of it all is just too much. But thank you very much for your work on that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sierra.
Thank you. Mr. Gubbins, I want to thank you. I see our 246 resurfacing project on the list, and I'm very excited about it. I just wanted to ask a couple questions, though. It says here that it's from Domingos Road to west of Avenue of Flags, and yet my understanding was that the most serious part of the project is just east of Avenue of Flags. So I'm hoping that was a typo. There's that gas station, and we've had all the people, remember, with the walkway.
Yeah, and we had some very good cooperation with your city on how we were going to fix that. So I believe you're correct, because that is this project.
That is part of it.
If that is not correct, I will definitely be in touch with you and try and find out why. Yeah.
Thank you, because that was, the citizens are very excited that 246 is going to be resurfaced there. It's really getting to be bumpy, and I appreciate you going out and filling in cracks and holes for us, but it's going to be a really nice project. That one area is the one that most people complain about, though. And it says it's going to start in December, which originally had been November. And Kathy DeGracio or somebody had mentioned that we were going to try to start at that one area first. I don't know if that's still possible or not.
I believe we were. That was the last I had heard. And again, because of the cooperation of how can we together work on those sidewalks and other things, my understanding is that is definitely in the project.
Thank you.
But I will have Ms. DeGracia contact you with if there's any schedule updates.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Farr, and then Mr. Mosby.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Gubbins. First of all, I wanted to say that it seems like for most of the meetings that I've been at, the list of projects that you're working on has always been one page, both sides. This time it's 2 pages, both sides. So, despite all of the financial challenges that we know so well, there's certainly a lot of good work being done by Caltrans in Santa Barbara County, and I really want to thank you for that. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the Board of Supervisors did submit an application to Caltrans for scenic highway designation for Highway 101 from just west of the City of Goleta boundary to the intersection with Highway 1 and 101. And, all of Highway 101 through Santa Barbara County has, been a candidate for that designation for a long time. So I just wanted to say that, I hope that Caltrans will review that favorably and go ahead and approve it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Farr. Mr. Mosby.
Tim, just to keep the thank yous going, can't believe it.
Isn't that nice?
We move you up from, 40% to 50% approval rating or something like that now?
11.
But just how fast, a lot of people have said how slow you guys are and how fast you guys did this. It was, it was only a few months, so I really appreciate that. I know a lot of other people do as well. Thank you.
Mr. Bennett.
Yeah, you weren't at the last meeting, but I did offer up great thank yous about the 101 through the City of Goleta. And since I've spoken to you so many times before about that mess, I think you deserve to hear from me as well that that's been just a great project, and we really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. The next item is communications that we have in our folder. Before we adjourn, I know that Supervisor Farr would like to make a comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, this is my last SBCAG meeting, so I just wanted to take a moment to make a couple of comments. And first of all, it's always real at SBCAG. And I think when I first was a director, no matter what else was going on in the county, if you really were itching to get into a good, strong discussion or even an argument, SBCAG meetings were the place to do it. Things seems to have mellowed a little bit, although it may only be temporary. But I think that it just goes to show that we all care very much about the work that SBCAG does, that we're all trying to meet the challenges, and despite a diversity of opinion, there are a lot of successes that we've had, and a lot of projects have been delivered, since in the 8 years that I've been on this board, and whether they're big projects or small projects, and whether they're SBCAG projects or whether they're Caltrans, as I just mentioned, all this good work going on in Santa Barbara County. We are doing some really good things, and despite the fact that we are concerned about the state of our pavement and our roads, I was down in Ventura County not too long ago, and their roads are really bad. And so, all it takes is going someplace else where they don't have, self-help to be able to really see the difference. So anyway, I do want to thank everybody, starting with SBCAG, Jim and Steve and Peter and Fred and Sarkis and Scott and Greg and everybody else for the day-to-day work that you do here at SBCAG. Jim, we know you're going off into retirement, and we have a new executive director that's going to be coming in. She's certainly coming into a great team, and I know that the work is going to continue. Tim, you have been wonderful to work with, and your predecessor, Eileen Lowe, has been, very faithful about coming to a lot of meetings, and other Caltrans staff as well. And I see it looks like Tony Harris left, but I have to say that I think he was a really good choice, and that was a really good decision of our board when we decided to bring him in to help with the project management of the Highway 101 project. For all of my fellow SBCAG directors, congratulations to the vast majority of you who were re-elected during this last election cycle. We know that the work that we do at SBCAG is always in addition to all the work that we already have to do to serve our constituents and in our districts and in our cities, and so it's additive to that. And I think that, again, despite, our vigorous discussions and diversity of opinions, we do come together and we do a really good job serving Santa Barbara County. So goodbye and thank you. And I know you guys are going to have a great future together. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Doreen. Okay, Mr. Dillon has a
thank you, Madam Chair.
Comment, announcement.
I hate to follow that, but effective January, we're going to have a change in assignments in legal counsel to SBCAG, and Rachel Van Mullen will take over as chief counsel. She's highly experienced. In fact, she's the chief assistant of the office, so you're not getting just another, line deputy coming in here. She has a lot of experience in CEQA and land use and in all sorts of regulatory matters. She's also, to the extent our office has been more involved in the CEQA issues related to the Highway 101 litigation, she's up to speed on that, and we've worked together on that. So there won't be a beat missed in terms of that type of legal support that you will need on that project. I'm not going to make a big farewell because I'm not likely to disappear entirely. There's a decent chance I'll still be counsel to APCD and LAFCO, subject to certain hoops being dealt with in December. Mike Gazzoni's looking into that, but that's the discussion right now. So no big farewell, but at least in terms of SBCAG, I really came to appreciate the long day you all have when you do APCD and SBCAG back to back, when a few years ago I became counsel for both. So it's quite a marathon you sit through regularly, and I'm sorry to be leaving the first part of that, but I'll see you in the afternoons when you meet as APCD. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Bill, thank you for your counsel, both legally and otherwise. You've been a great addition to this board. So, and I'm glad we're going to continue to see you. And to Jim, I'm just assuming this is going to be our last meeting and that we're not going to have any emergencies or need for another meeting. But Jim Richardson and I attended Jim Kemp's retirement party, and it was the comments were very heartfelt. You are a very beloved, well-respected individual, both professionally and personally. So we have all been very lucky to have you as part of our SBCAG team, and we will miss you tremendously. And to Doreen Farr, on just so many levels, just I don't even want to get into the personal part, but okay, so I'm just going to talk about SBCAG because you're just, I don't know, there's something about you, Doreen, where you just know how to get right to the issue. And, you can look through stacks of material and you just dive in and pinpoint an issue that's of concern not just to your constituents, but to the entire county. And you're so incredibly intelligent, you're so articulate, and you're so caring and thoughtful. And you will be missed next year, but we know that Joan's going to do a great job as well, but we will just miss you tremendously and wish you the best. And then we will welcome Margie as our new executive director. So, and our new chair and vice chair. And to all of you, thank you, and let's go charge our cell phones. Okay. The meeting is adjourned.